I built his company. I stayed late, missed birthdays, burned myself out for it, and one Friday afternoon, he handed it to my brother like I never existed. My name is Ethan Callahan. I'm 34. I'm an architect. And for 10 years I was the heartbeat of my family's company, Callahan & Sons, a design-build firm tucked in the heart of Denver. To most people, it looked like a family success story. To me, it was my life, my legacy, my identity, until the day they erased me from it, without a word. I used to believe in certain things. Loyalty, hard work, sacrifice. I believed that if you gave everything to your family, they would never forget it. They would never choose someone else. That belief died the moment I found out my younger brother Zach had been quietly named CEO of the company I practically built from the ground up. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back. I was 28 when I took over daily operations at Callahan & Sons. My father, Richard Callahan, started the company out of a 2-car garage when I was still in middle school. He and my mother, Diane, took on kitchen remodels, patio expansions, whatever paid the bills. I watched my dad come home with sawdust in his lungs and bruises on his ribs. Watched my mom chase down clients who ghosted on payments. She'd be managing invoices in Excel files that crashed every time you blinked too fast. It was honest work, but it wasn't scalable. So when I graduated with degrees in architecture and business, I didn't take some flashy firm job. I came home because I believed in what they built. More than that, I believed I could make it grow. Within 2 years, I had overhauled everything. Streamlined operations, negotiated better contracts, brought in new vendors, signed our first 7-figure client. By the time I was 32, I was overseeing every major account, managing teams, and running the company on paper, if not in title. Then there was Zach. 3 years younger, smart, charismatic, but never quite grounded. He chased startups, failed twice, disappeared to Bali for a year to find his purpose. I didn't resent that, not at first. We were just wired differently. But then he came home, said he wanted to be part of the legacy. And just like that, my parents brought him in with a smile. My dad gave him the title strategy consultant. He showed up late, sat in on meetings, threw out vague words like innovation and culture optimization, but couldn't tell you the difference between gross margin and net revenue. I stayed quiet, cleaned up his messes, smoothed over client relationships when his ideas backfired, because that's what you do for family. At least that's what I thought. Then came that Friday. We had just wrapped the final design presentation for Hawthorne Properties, our biggest contract to date. $5 million. They loved it. They were ready to move. I went to the back office to print some closing documents and found an envelope. Sitting on my chair, my name on the front, in my dad's handwriting. Inside was a copy of a corporate resolution. Zach Callahan, named Chief Executive Officer, effective immediately. No discussion, no warning, not a single damn word. My name wasn't even mentioned. I sat there, staring, hands numb, heart hollow. I must have read that line 50 times, just waiting for it to become untrue. But it didn't. It was real. They had handed my work, my sweat, my years, to the golden boy, like I was just a placeholder. I didn't scream, didn't cry. I just stood up, walked past the design board, past the frame certifications, out to the conference room where Zach was laughing with one of our junior designers. Like nothing had changed. And our parents nowhere in sight. So I made a decision. If they wanted Zach to run it, he could. That night, I backed up my personal files, deleted the internal systems I'd built from the shared drive. I didn't sabotage anything. I just removed me. Let's see how far they'd get without the engine. I had never missed a Monday, not in 6 years. But that Monday, I didn't show up. And the silence, it spoke louder than any resignation letter ever could. That weekend, I kept waiting for a call, a message, an explanation, anything. But it never came. No, we're sorry. No, let's talk. Just silence. Like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just been cut out of my own story. On Monday, I woke up at 5:30 out of habit, stared at the ceiling for 10 minutes, then realized I had nowhere to be. I made coffee, sat on the couch, and watched the sun pour through the blinds. No meetings, no deadlines, no spreadsheets. Just stillness. I thought it would feel like freedom. It didn't. It felt like freefall, like a life paused mid-sentence. For 10 years I had been the one holding the company together. Now I was just a man in a quiet apartment with nothing but his thoughts and a copy of the Betrayal in his desk drawer. They didn't call that day, or the next, or the next. It wasn't until Friday, 5 days after I vanished, that my father's name finally lit up on my phone. I didn't answer. Let it go to voicemail. I played it back once, twice, a third time. His voice was tight, panicked. "Ethan, we need to talk. Hawthorne's pulling out. They said you're not on the project anymore and they don't feel comfortable moving forward without you." A pause. Then, "Call me, please." I stared at the phone for a long time, then typed one sentence. "Ask your golden boy. He's in charge now, right?" I hit send. Then I turned my phone off. I didn't expect a reply. And for the next 2 days I didn't get one. The silence returned, but it wasn't quiet. It was frantic, like the noise of people scrambling behind a closed door. I imagined Zach fumbling through contracts he never read. My dad pacing the office. My mom acting like nothing was wrong, offering coffee, changing the subject. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt tired. Bone-deep tired. 8 days had passed since I walked out, and in that time I had done something I hadn't done in over a decade. Nothing. No emails, no proposals, no back-to-back calls. Just quiet walks, long dinners, and staring at my phone wondering how long they'd pretend I didn't matter. Then on Wednesday morning, my mother called. "Sweetheart," she said, her voice thick with forced warmth. "You've made your point. Can we talk about this professionally?" A beat. Then dinner, Sunday night, just the four of us. Like this was a minor disagreement over Thanksgiving seating. Not a betrayal that lit a fire under my entire career. But I agreed, because I needed to see their faces. I needed to look them in the eye and ask, "Did you even understand what you did to me?" That Sunday, I pulled into their driveway at exactly 6 p.m. Porch light on, dinner plates clinking inside. I paused at the front door, steadied my breath. Zach answered. "Hey, E," he said casually. Like we weren't standing on opposite sides of a war nobody dared admit we were in. I walked past him, didn't say a word. The dining room looked the same. Mom in her apron. Dad flipping through a leather-bound notebook. Small talk started. But I wasn't here for small talk. I let it drag for a few minutes. Then I put my fork down. "I'm not here to fix anything," I said, voice calm. "I'm here to ask one question." My father looked up. "Why?" He blinked. "Why? What?" I stared directly at him. "Why did you make Zach CEO behind my back? No warning. No conversation, no explanation." The room went still. My mother poured more wine, avoided eye contact. My father sighed. "Ethan, you've always been the backbone. Nobody questions that, but you're operational. Zach is visionary. He has ideas." I almost laughed. "You mean like pushing for a $200,000 office renovation in Q4? Or running a marketing campaign with zero strategy?" "He's learning," Mom chimed in, "and he connects with the younger team." "So you gave him the company?" I asked. "You gave it to the one person who doesn't know how to manage vendors, read contracts, or meet deadlines." Dad leaned forward. "You were burning out. We thought maybe it was time to give you some space. Let you breathe." I stared at him. "You thought stabbing me in the back would help me breathe." Zach finally spoke. "It wasn't like that, E. I didn't ask for this. Dad said you needed a break. I thought I was helping." I turned to him, and you said yes. Took the title, took the office, took the authority, and never once asked why I was suddenly taking a break I didn't know about. He dropped his gaze. My mom reached for my hand. I pulled back. "You didn't just hurt me," I said quietly. "You jeopardized what I built. You let Hawthorne walk. That contract was our entry into the luxury market." My father looked shaken. "They'll come back." "They won't," I said. "They signed with Bramer Group." I checked. The table fell quiet. Then he asked carefully, "What do you want, Ethan?" I met his eyes. "I want to be respected, valued, and clearly, that's not possible with Zach in the driver's seat." No one responded, so I stood, reached for my coat. "Enjoy dinner, and good luck with your visionary." They didn't value me when I stayed, but when I left, everything they built started to fall apart. After that Sunday dinner, I shut it all off. Muted the group chats, turned off work notifications, put my phone face down and walked away from the fire. Let them feel the heat for once. The first few days were strange. I kept waking at 5:30 out of habit. Still made coffee. Still opened my laptop. Then remembered. There were no emails waiting, no meetings, no deadlines. Just stillness. And you know what? At first it scared me, because for the first time in years, I wasn't essential to anyone's chaos. But by Thursday morning, that fear had started to shift into something else. Clarity. I hadn't just worked at Callahan and Sons, I'd built its bones. Every system, every workflow, every major client in the last 6 years came through me. But none of it was ever documented. Not in full, not in a playbook, because I never planned to leave. The knowledge lived in me. The trust lived in me. And now they had the title. But I had the leverage, so I started building my own file. Not to take anything from them, but to protect what I had poured into that place. A record of what I created. Every client I signed, every project I led, every process I implemented. I called Sienna Jacobs, an old colleague turned executive recruiter. We had lunch that Friday. She took one look at my resume and said, "You're a unicorn, Ethan. Technical mind leadership track, proven ROI. Firms would fight to get you." I smiled a little bitter. My family didn't seem to think so. She didn't sugarcoat it. They didn't see you, because they think they already know you. That's the curse of family. Familiarity breeds blindness. That hit me. Familiarity breeds blindness. Explains a lot, doesn't it? Later that same day, the silence started to crack. A voicemail from Clint Reynolds, one of our senior project managers. His voice was tight, like he was trying to sound calm, but couldn't quite manage it. "Hey, Ethan. Sorry to bother you. Listen, do you remember where you saved the spec documents for the Baxter Hills project? Zach says he can't find them, and the client needs confirmation by 4 today. I didn't answer. An hour later, another voicemail. Karen from accounting. "Hi, Ethan. I know you're away, but we've got a syncing issue with the budget tracking system. Zach told me to call you. He said you'd probably know how to fix it. Please, it's urgent." By mid-afternoon, my inbox had 6 emails, 3 missed calls, 2 LinkedIn messages. Suddenly, the guy who was too operational was indispensable again. Funny how that works. But here's the thing. Needing someone isn't the same as valuing them. They didn't value me when they made that decision. Didn't value me enough to warn me, involve me, or even look me in the eye. But now that things were breaking, suddenly I was the only one who could put it back together. That evening I went for a walk. Cold air, quiet streets, no rush. I passed a park, saw a kid climbing monkey bars, a couple walking their dog, a man reading under a street light. And it hit me. The world keeps moving, even when yours feels like it stopped. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was falling behind. I wasn't racing, wasn't proving. I was just being, and that was enough. When I got home, I poured a glass of wine, sat on my balcony, watched the sun disappear behind the Denver skyline. My phone buzzed again. A message from my dad. "Call me, it's urgent." I stared at it, then typed, "What's wrong?" The reply came fast. "We lost the Wexler contract, $2.3 million. They said they don't trust Zach's leadership. Please come back." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because now, they were learning the real cost. The cost of silence. The cost of taking me for granted. And I was learning something too. You don't have to slam a door to make a statement. Sometimes, you just don't walk back through it. They wanted me back. But I was already building a life. That didn't need them anymore. After the Wexler contract fell apart, I expected another message. A voicemail. Maybe even an apology. But all I got was more silence. Not the cold, passive kind. This time it was a silence that trembled, like they knew they were running out of time. I didn't return their calls, didn't check the office group chat. I let it all sit there, unanswered, unread. Because for once, their urgency wasn't my problem. I spent that week doing something I hadn't done in years. I rested. And I mean really rested. No guilt. No alarms. No looking over my shoulder wondering what fire needed putting out. I cooked, walked trails, read things with no deadlines attached, watched the sunset without a laptop glowing beside me. And somewhere in the middle of that, I realized this is what it feels like to not be used. By Friday, I had something I hadn't felt in months. Perspective. And more than that, leverage. Because the truth was, they didn't know what they'd lost, until I was no longer there to carry it all. Then, that afternoon, something shifted. I got a knock on the door. Not a text, not a voicemail. A knock. I wasn't expecting anyone. For a moment, I thought about ignoring it, but I opened the door anyway. And there she was, my mother, standing in the hallway, holding a container of her homemade lasagna, like it was any other Sunday night, and not the aftermath of a war. "Hi, sweetheart," she said softly. She looked nervous, like she wasn't sure if I'd slammed the door in her face. I didn't. I stepped aside, let her in. The apartment smelled like lavender and fresh linen, clean, calm. She placed the food on the counter and turned to me. "Your father's struggling," she said. "Zach's in over his head. We didn't realize how much you did until you weren't there to do it." I stayed quiet. She reached for a glass of water, took a long sip. Then, without looking at me, she said, "We made a mistake." I folded my arms. "So now that everything's breaking, I'm useful again." She flinched, just slightly, but enough. She didn't deny it. Instead, she said, "We thought Zach needed a win. After all his false starts, after Bali, after failing twice, we thought this would help him grow up." I stared at her. "You gave him my life's work," I said, "because you wanted to fix him." She looked away. "It wasn't meant to hurt you. We thought you'd always be there. You were the steady one, the reliable one." "And you used that against me," I said. "Calm, clear. You didn't reward me for being reliable. You punished me for it." She nodded, slow, heavy. "I don't know how to fix this, Ethan," she said, "but we want to please come back." I shook my head. "I'm not coming back to the same thing. Not the same title. Not the same structure. You made it very clear who you value." She took a breath. "Then what would make it right?" I paused, looked her in the eye, and finally said the words I hadn't even admitted to myself. Control, respect, ownership. Her eyes widened. "You want to be CEO?" "No," I replied. "I want equity. I want real power, decision-making rights, and I want Zach out of the driver's seat." She whispered, "That would destroy your father." "No," I said. "His decision already did that. I'm offering a way out." She stared at me for a long time. Then she said, "I'll talk to him." But I stopped her. "I'm not negotiating. This isn't a favor. If I come back, it's on my terms." That night, I emailed Jasmine Patel, my lawyer friend, told her to pull the company's bylaws, ownership structure, and the resolution that made Zach CEO. If they wanted to talk, I'd be ready, because this wasn't about saving their business anymore. It was about defining my value and making sure they never forgot it again. I wasn't coming back to make peace. I was coming back to change the rules, and they finally understood I wasn't just their son anymore. I was the storm. The message came in just after lunch on Monday. From my father. "We'd like to meet. No pressure. Just a conversation. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. Riverstone Club." It was short. Too short. Like he didn't want to risk saying the wrong thing again. But the location that said everything. The Riverstone Club was the kind of place you chose when you were trying to look composed, while quietly falling apart. I accepted, and then I got to work. This wasn't just going to be a meeting. This was going to be a reckoning. I arrived early, wearing a navy blue suit I'd never worn to the office. New, fitted, purposeful. It wasn't for style, it was armor. Because I wasn't walking into that room as Ethan the son, or Ethan the employee. I was walking in as the man who had built the foundation and watched them try to run it without him. They were already seated when I arrived. My mother, my father, and yes, Zach. His presence surprised me, but not enough to shake me. "Ethan," my father said with a nod. No hug, no apology, just business. I sat, calm, steady. Let the silence settle before I spoke. "Let's begin." My father cleared his throat. "First, I want to say, we underestimated your role. That's on me. I thought I was making the right decision for the long-term health of the company, but I ignored the fact that you were the company's health." He paused. "I also assumed you'd never leave, that you'd push through, keep everything afloat, and I took advantage of that. For that, I'm sorry." It wasn't a full apology, but it was the most I'd ever heard him say out loud. My mother added softly, "We've been talking about ways to move forward, but we want to hear from you first." I looked at all three of them. then leaned forward. Voice low, clear. I'm not coming back to be anyone's employee. They froze. I'm not coming back to clean up mistakes someone else made while still being expected to stay in my lane. I turned to Zach. You took the title. You accepted the responsibility. And now you're bleeding clients and asking me to help from the shadows. Zach opened his mouth, then closed it. He had nothing, because he knew I was right. I placed a printed sheet on the table. My terms, I said, 35% equity, executive voting rights, co-CEO structure. My father raised an eyebrow. You want equal power. Exactly, I replied. Not more, not less, equal. He scanned the paper. My mother looked uneasy. What about the team? The clients, won't this confuse them? I smiled just slightly. They're already confused, because right now, the leadership is unstable. You bring me back with clarity. You don't just stop the bleeding. You rebuild trust. My father looked down at the paper, then back at me. And if we say no? I didn't flinch. I walk permanently. I let that sit, then added, I've already got an offer from Westmore Capital, Director of Strategic Operations. They're happy to let me bring Anderson and Wexler with me. He paled. You'd really leave us? I'd rather build something from scratch than keep propping up a system that devalues me. Then, Zach finally spoke. Quiet, shaky. What if I step down? The table went silent. He looked me in the eye. I thought I could handle it. I really did. But I've been drowning since day one. If this fixes it, if sharing control gets us back on track, then I'm in. It was the most honest thing I'd ever heard from him. And for once he didn't sound like a visionary. He sounded real. My father looked down, then nodded. I'll have Harold draft the paperwork. I nodded too. Good. I want it signed before I step foot back in that office. He hesitated. And your title? Chief Operating Officer, I said. But functionally, I'll be calling the shots right next to him. We shook hands, not as family, as business partners. And in that moment, the power shifted. For good. I didn't return for them. I didn't return for redemption. I returned for myself. And this time I wasn't asking to be seen. I was commanding it. 10 days later, the paperwork was signed. 35% equity, co-CEO structure. Full executive authority shared between me and Zach. Legally binding, irrevocable, undeniable. They couldn't move a dollar without my signature, and that felt right. I didn't walk back into Callahan and Sons as a son returning home. I walked in as a man who had redrawn the map and now owned half the compass. The staff's reaction, cautious. Some looked confused, some relieved, others surprised I'd returned at all. Rumors had flown while I was gone. Some said I'd been fired. Others said I'd quit in protest. A few whispered I was suing, but no one knew the full story. And honestly, that worked in my favor. At our first Monday meeting, I stood at the front of the room. No preamble, no theatrics, just clarity. I'm not here to undo the past few weeks, I said. What's done is done. But I am here to rebuild what we lost and take us somewhere better. Silence. Then, Clint, our senior PM, stood. We missed you, Ethan. And just like that, the room exhaled. So did I. Zach didn't hide. To his credit, he showed up. He stayed co-CEO, but redirected his focus. Outreach, branding, creative direction. Things he actually enjoyed. Things he didn't fake. And slowly, he got better. He started listening. He stopped performing like a boss and started acting like a teammate. We weren't best friends. We didn't pretend to be. But for the first time, we were aligned. My father, he struggled. Not with my leadership, with his ego. Watching his son, the one he tried to sideline, take command in board meetings, negotiate new vendor contracts, win back the Anderson account. That was hard to swallow. The same son he once told to stay in his lane was now rewriting the entire highway system. But eventually even he came around. 3 weeks after I returned, he stopped by my office. No tie, just khakis and an old Callahan polo, like the early days. He stood at my glass wall for a long moment, then said, I watched the way you handled Wexler. You didn't just clean up the mess. You salvaged the relationship. I nodded, because I knew what mattered to them. I built that trust. He looked down, fiddled with his wedding ring. I should have seen it sooner. I didn't say you should have. He already knew. So instead I said, you see it now. That's what matters. That night I stayed late. Not because I had to. Because I wanted to. I was sketching a new client onboarding workflow, streamlining process chains, rebuilding the foundation. And I was doing it from a place of clarity, not exhaustion, not obligation, not guilt, but purpose. At 7:45 p.m., the lights across the floor began to click off. I stood by the window, looked out over the Denver skyline, and I realized something. This was no longer about revenge. It wasn't even about proving my worth. It was about reclaiming what I had built and making it stronger than before. Sometimes you don't rise from the ashes. You rise from the silence you chose, the boundaries you enforced, and the power you finally claimed. 2 months after I returned, Callahan & Sons closed its biggest deal ever, a $7.2 million commercial development. Downtown Denver, 6 buildings, full design build, end-to-end project leadership. And the client, they didn't find us through ads or social media. They found us through word of mouth. More specifically, through reputation. Ours had been shaky, but now people were talking again, but this time with respect. The client, Marcus Delling from Halcyon Ventures, walked into our office on a Thursday morning. He had a leather folio, a 2-page brief, and a calm confidence that said, "I've already made my decision. I just want to see who I'm giving this contract to." We gave the pitch. Clean, tight, no overpromising, just straight execution strategy. At the end of the meeting, Marcus stood up, looked right at me. "We've heard about the leadership transition," he said, "and from what I gather, you're the one who saved this place from collapse." I didn't blink. "Not saved," I said. "Rebuilt." He smiled. "Good, because that's who we want leading our build." 3 days later, he signed $7.2 million. Just like that. When I walked out of that meeting, contract in hand, I felt something I hadn't let myself feel in a long time. Peace. Not pride, not vindication, not even triumph. Just peace. Because the work was finally speaking for itself. As I stepped into the elevator, my phone buzzed. A message from my mother. "Sunday dinner, just us. No business talk, I promise." I smiled. Maybe, just maybe, we were healing. That night I poured a glass of wine, sat on my balcony, and let the cold wind settle on my face. The city lights flickered. Below, the hum of life continued. And for once, I didn't feel like I was catching up. I was already where I needed to be. Because here's the truth. Power doesn't always look like a title. Sometimes it looks like walking away, and being so good they have to beg you to return. But real power, it's when you return on your terms, with your name on the contract and your voice at the table. No more silence, no more waiting to be chosen. I had chosen myself. Success is loud, but sabotage is quiet. It waits in familiar smiles, and strikes when you're finally starting to breathe. The Halcyon project was in motion, blueprints finalized, permits cleared, client relations steady. We were back, stronger, smarter, lean but lethal. And I was for the first time in years not in fight mode, not in defense mode. Just forward. Zach was holding his lane, marketing, brand voice, client-facing media. He was good at it, better than I expected. And he wasn't getting in my way. He was letting me lead. But that's the thing about peace. It's not always permanent. Especially when someone starts fearing they're no longer the star of the story. It started small. A missed email. Then, a rescheduled vendor meeting. No explanation. Just a vague conflict in my calendar. Then, a design document I finalized got replaced. Different layout, different specs. Zach had submitted it, behind my back. I asked him about it, calmly. He waved it off. "Simpler lines, Ethan. More minimalist. It's what's trending right now." "But not what was approved," I said. He smiled easy. "Don't worry, Marcus loved it." He didn't. In fact, Marcus emailed me the next day. "Ethan, I'm a little concerned. There have been some changes I wasn't briefed on. Can we have a direct call, just you and me?" My stomach turned, because that's when I knew. Zach was drifting again. He wasn't undermining me out of malice. He was doing it out of insecurity, out of fear. Fear that the spotlight had moved and wasn't coming back. I could have confronted him publicly. I could have pulled rank, reminded him I had veto power now, reminded him we were equals, but I was the one holding the systems together. Instead, I called him into my office, closed the door, and said exactly what needed to be said. "I know what you're doing." He froze. I don't think you're doing it to hurt the company, but I do think you're trying to reclaim control. In the only way you know how." He looked down, didn't deny it, didn't excuse it, which told me he already knew he was off track. "I don't want your title," I said. "I never did. I want execution. I want stability. I want to win." I paused. "But I can't do that if I have to second-guess my own co-lead." He nodded, slow, then said, "You were always better at this, Ethan. I think I just wanted one thing that was mine." And there it was, the core wound. He didn't want power. He wanted identity. He wanted to not feel like the backup plan. I leaned back. "You're not a backup," I said, "but you do need to know your strengths. And stop stepping into arenas that don't belong to you." He didn't argue. And that was growth. By the end of the week, Zach refocused. He stayed in his lane, and the energy in the office shifted. Tension lifted. Trust slowly restored. Because we had both learned the truth. Shared power only works when both people stop pretending they need to be the only one in charge. Sometimes the biggest threat is not failure, but success. And the moment you stop fighting for survival, you have to ask, what do I really want now? It came in a crisp white envelope, delivered by courier, handwritten label. My name, spelled perfectly. Inside an invitation. Westmore Capital. The same firm that offered me a lifeline when I was drowning in silence. Back when no one at Callahan & Sons remembered what I was worth. Only this time it wasn't a job offer. It was a proposal. They wanted me as a partner. An equity partner. Full operational control of their new design-build division. A budget 5 times what I had at Callahan. A team already hand-picked. And complete creative freedom. No politics. No legacy tension. No family dynamics wrapped in glass smiles. Just clean lines, clear power, and a blank canvas. I stared at the contract for an hour, then another. Because this wasn't just an opportunity. This was a test. A question whispered through success. Now that you've proven yourself, do you still want what you once fought to keep? The timing couldn't have been more precise. Halcyon was thriving. The team was locked in. Zach was finally respecting the boundaries. And still, a part of me hesitated. Not because I feared the leap, but because I feared the reason. Was I walking towards something, or just away from everything I'd had to forgive? That night I went for a long drive. No music, just the sound of tires on pavement and questions I wasn't sure I could answer. Could I leave what I'd rebuilt? Not the company, but the version of myself that had clawed his way out of invisibility. Could I trust that the version of me who didn't need to be needed could still be powerful? I parked near the overlook where you could see the whole city glow beneath the stars. And I asked myself one final question. What's more important now? Legacy or liberation? I didn't answer that night. Some choices deserve more than instinct. They deserve intention. So I slept on it. Let the contract sit on my nightstand like a loaded promise. And by morning, I still hadn't decided. But I knew one thing for sure. Power isn't just what you claim. It's what you're willing to walk away from. Some choices feel clean until you speak them out loud. Then suddenly you're not just deciding for yourself. You're rewriting the contract of every relationship built on your presence. I told them on a Wednesday. The core team. Just 6 of us. No boardroom. No projector. Just coffee chairs and the kind of silence that waits for news it doesn't want to hear. I kept it direct. I've been offered a partner role at Westmore Capital, I said. They want me to lead a new division. Total control. Total freedom. Clint blinked. Tessa set her coffee down too hard. Zach froze. No one spoke, so I filled the air before they could. I haven't made a decision yet, I said. I'm not leaving tomorrow. This isn't a resignation. This is me being transparent. Because that's what we've built here. Honesty. Mutual respect. Clint was the first to speak. You earned it, Ethan, he said quietly. But damn, that's a loss we'd feel deep. Tessa nodded. You helped rebuild our trust. Not just in the company, in ourselves. She looked at me. You gave us something real. Then Zach leaned forward, his voice low. Why now? I met his eyes. Because they offered me a seat that doesn't come with history. He flinched, but he didn't argue. Because he knew. History weighs more when it's written by people who never gave you a pen. I don't want to make this decision based on guilt, I said. I want to make it based on clarity. Zach stood, walked to the window, then turned back. I won't ask you to stay, he said. That's not my place. But if you go, I hope it's because it brings you peace. Not because you're still trying to outrun the past. That hit me harder than I expected, because deep down I didn't know the answer yet. That night I drove to the old warehouse, the one we nearly lost during the worst quarter of the year. I walked through the concrete halls, ran my hand across the new steel beams. This building was the first project we finished after my return. The first place where I realized I didn't need to be saved. Just seen. And maybe that's the real question. Do I want to lead in a place that finally sees me, or in a place that never doubted me in the first place? Sometimes walking away isn't an exit, it's an evolution. Because leaving doesn't always mean losing, and staying doesn't always mean surrendering. I met Marcus Delling from Westmore at a quiet hotel lounge on Friday. He wore the same tailored confidence as the day he offered me the contract. But this time I was holding the pen. He slid the agreement across the table. All my terms met. Equity, autonomy, a startup division with my name stamped on the future. I didn't sign it. Not yet. Instead, I pulled out a second document. My own. Marcus raised an eyebrow. I let the silence do the heavy lifting. I'm accepting the offer, I said. But I'm not leaving Callahan & Sons. Not entirely. He leaned in. Explain. I want a dual-seat structure, I said. Executive consulting at Westmore while retaining operational oversight at Callahan. His mouth tightened. Conflict of interest. Not if I structure it right, I replied. Non-compete clauses managed. Distinct market sectors. Clean advisory lines. Marcus sat back, studied me. Then he smiled. That's bold. No, I said calmly, that's balance. Because here's the truth, I didn't build one empire to abandon it for another. I built it so I could stop choosing between pieces of myself. By Monday, both agreements were signed. Dual contracts, dual power. A foot in two worlds. Not because I couldn't commit, but because I finally knew how much I was worth. When I walked into Callahan & Sons that morning, I didn't announce anything. No speeches, no drama. Just clarity. Zach stopped by my office that afternoon. So he said, "You're doing both." I nodded. "You okay with that?" I asked. He shrugged. "I think you were always meant to build bigger things." He paused. "But I'm glad one of them still has our name on it." Later that night, I walked through the new Halcyon site. Steel frame rising, lights humming. No ceremony, just quiet motion. And I realized this was never about loyalty versus ambition. It was about creating a space where both could exist. Not all endings are dramatic. Some arrive in whispers and still manage to echo for the rest of your life. It was Sunday. Dinner at my parents' place. No contracts, no tension, no hidden agendas. Just four people trying to remember how to be family again. My mother greeted me at the door. She wore that same soft blue apron she'd had since I was a teenager. "Roast chicken," she smiled. "Your favorite." I stepped inside. The kitchen smelled like olive oil and thyme. The hallway still had that photo of me and Zach, aged 10 and 7, covered in mud from our first treehouse build. Time moved forward. But memory lingers. We sat around the table, Zach across from me, Mom and Dad at either end. The wine flowed slowly, the laughter cautiously. And then my father cleared his throat. "I heard about Westmore," he said. "Congratulations." I nodded. "Thanks." He looked down at his plate, then back up. "I know I didn't say it before, but I'm proud of you. Not just for what you've done, but for who you became when we weren't looking." Silence. Then he added, "You taught me something, Ethan. Power isn't handed. It's earned by showing up even after they stop asking you to." I looked at him. This man who once overlooked me, now searching for ways to make it right without undoing the past. And I let him. Not because he deserved it, but because I deserved the peace that comes with letting go. Later after dessert, Zach walked me to my car. "I meant what I said," he told me. "You were always meant for bigger things." He paused. "Just don't forget us when you're building the next empire." I smiled. "I'm not building away from you, Zach. I'm building because of what we survived." He exhaled. I needed to hear that. And I meant it. Because this wasn't about erasing the past. It was about owning it without letting it own me. That night I sat on my balcony one last time. The city pulsed below, steady, alive, unafraid. I sipped my wine and whispered to no one. I didn't just come back. I came back stronger, wiser, and finally free. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: loyalty without respect is a trap. Silence, when wielded with purpose, is power. And real family doesn't need you to shrink in order to fit. They learn to grow with you, or they don't grow at all. This was my story. Not a perfect one, but mine. And that finally is enough.